Lebanon's deadliest day in nearly 2 decades as Israel targets Hezbollah with airstrikes. Tonight, the United States deploys more troops to the Middle East as tensions escalate.
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you, it's with Hezbollah.
The chilling new details in the second apparent assassination attempt against Donald Trump. The handwritten note found and the alleged getaway plan to Mexico.
The environment wins. The economy wins.
And tonight's Eye on America, what some voters want to see done in the fight against climate change.
When you vote, will you be thinking about climate?
Absolutely.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening and thank you for joining us. We're going to begin with news from the Pentagon today that more U.S. troops are being sent to the Middle East as American citizens in Lebanon are being told to get out. Tensions in the region are now boiling as Israel steps up its military campaign against the terror group Hezbollah. Officials in Lebanon say Israeli strikes killed nearly 500 people today, including nearly 36 children, and left more than 1,600 wounded. It is the deadliest day of fighting between Israel and Hezbollah since 2006. President Biden, on the eve of his address to the United Nations General Assembly, says his administration is working to de-escalate the crisis. We are covering this story from all angles at home and abroad, beginning with CBS's Chris Livesay in Tel Aviv. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Nora. Israel is vowing to continue those strikes in the near term. After a week of crippling blows to Hezbollah, its second in command says it's now a battle with no limits.
Missile after missile. More than 1,300 strikes slamming into southern Lebanon. This terrified family watched the bombardment hit their town. Calm down, mother, and pray, a man says. The Lebanese health ministry says dozens of women and children are among the victims, but each target, Israel claims, was a location used for storing Hezbollah weapons, including cruise missiles. According to the Israel Defense Forces, these videos appear to capture secondary explosions after the initial airstrikes, as those weapons detonate. Israel's government is warning civilians to flee from buildings used by the U.S. designated terror group.
It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens.
By the many thousands, Lebanese motorists clogged the highways to escape. Hezbollah exchanged fire of its own, albeit a fraction of the Israeli onslaught. There were no reports of Israeli deaths. Some rockets struck around the northern Israeli city of Haifa, where we visited a hospital. To evade a missile strike, doctors and nurses are now working out of the underground parking garage.
It's more than 200,000 square feet.
Correct.
Dr. Avi Weissman says they've been prepping for years.
But we always kind of hope that we'll never use it.
We're in a bunker with many, many more beds. What does that say about the war?
We need to be prepared for the worst case scenario.
Israel's army chief of staff says it's targeting combat infrastructure that Hezbollah has been building for the past 20 years and preparing for the next phases. But the big question is if those next phases will include a ground invasion. Nora?
There are many questions tonight. Chris Livesay, thank you very much. Tonight, we're learning more about this new deployment of U.S. troops to the Middle East. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon. Good evening, Charlie. And how is the U.S. military preparing for a wider conflict?
Well, Nora, tonight the Pentagon is calling the latest escalation between Israel and Lebanon a dangerous situation. And that decision to send in additional troops is to bolster more than 40,000 American troops that are already there. So the Pentagon spokesman said there is the potential for a wider regional conflict. The State Department now urging all Americans in Lebanon to leave the country while commercial flights are still available. The U.S. military already has numerous assets in the region, including the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, a fleet of destroyers, the USS Georgia submarine, and thousands of troops on military bases. Just today, another carrier group set sail for the Mediterranean, 6,500 sailors on board on an already scheduled deployment. Its arrival would allow the U.S. to have 2 carrier strike groups in the region in case tensions continue to mount. Nora?
Charlie D'Agata with that important information about our U.S. forces. Thank you. Now to the weather. Florida's governor declared an emergency for much of the state today as forecasters track a system churning in the Caribbean that could strengthen into a powerful Category 3 hurricane targeting the Gulf Coast this week. Let's get the latest now from CBS's Lonnie Quinn. Good evening, Lonnie. How bad is it going to be?
All right, Nora, it looks like we could have some real significant storm surge, especially around the panhandle of Florida. Now, you talk about forecasters tracking the systems. When we're watching these systems, which are just big low-pressure systems, we actually look for a high-pressure system because that high pressure can actually steer it. The one that we're watching right now is all of this clear air off the southeast coast. That high should push the storm inland into the north and west. But where's it going to make landfall? Right now, it's south of Cuba. Doesn't even have a name yet. Tomorrow, we think it becomes Tropical Storm Helene. By Wednesday, we have a Category 1 hurricane. By Thursday, making a landfall somewhere around the Big Bend as a Cat 3, a major hurricane. Then it pushes inland, and look at this. It makes a curve to the north and west because of that high pressure system. It's like a chessboard. You're watching how the pieces lay out. In terms of your storm surge, the entire west coast of Florida has a risk for storm surge. Now, the southern portion could be seeing 3 to 5 feet, but you get up to Tampa and north through the Big Bend, that's where it's about 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. And remember this, Nora, this is Florida. Elevation is not a big player. A lot of those towns have an elevation of about 5 feet. So, yeah, this could be a problem. That's the very latest, but it's all about, like I said, watching those chess pieces. It's all yours.
All right, really important information, Lonnie Quinn. Thank you very much. The man accused of trying to assassinate Donald Trump at his golf course was denied bail today after prosecutors revealed chilling new details, including a letter which he allegedly admitted to targeting the former president. CBS's Scott McFarland now with the new developments.
Department of Justice investigators revealed today when Ryan Ruth was arrested, they found 6 phones, phony license plates, a passport, and directions to Mexico in the car. Months earlier, Ruth allegedly left a handwritten letter in a box. It said, "Dear World, this was an assassination attempt." Prosecutors also revealed more of what happened 1 week ago Sunday at former President Donald Trump's West Palm Beach golf course. A Secret Service agent allegedly spotted Ruth's face, then the barrel of the semi-automatic poking out of the bushes near the 6th hole. Trump was on the 5th hole, an estimated 12 to 15 minutes away. Once the agent saw the gun move, prosecutors say the agent opened fire and Ruth took off.
He made swift decisions and took a swift action to be able to mitigate that. No shot was fired at the former president.
The feds say Ruth's gun had 11 rounds with 1 bullet in the chamber. Ruth's backpack allegedly had bulletproof armor inside. They told the judge it was a sniper position, something you see in a movie or a war zone.
For now, it's a firearms case. It will not be so for long. Within weeks, the federal prosecutors will expand the list of charges.
During an interview Sunday, Trump talked about the risks in playing golf.
Well, I used to play golf a little bit. That gave me, so I don't know, but it seems to be quite a dangerous sport in retrospect.
Prosecutors also say Ruth kept a handwritten log of Trump's recent and upcoming public events. And they say cell phone records indicate Ruth was near Mar-a-Lago several times during the month before his arrest. He's back in court Monday to be formally charged, potentially, Nora, with enhanced charges.
Scott McFarland, thank you. And there's breaking news from the campaign trail. Vice President Kamala Harris is weighing a trip to the southern border this week as she aims to gain ground against former President Trump on the issue of immigration. Now, this comes as Donald Trump is pitching a new tariff that could cost an iconic American company big money. With 43 days until Election Day, CBS's Caitlin Huey-Burns reports tonight from Battleground, Pennsylvania.
With just 6 weeks to go until Election Day, new CBS News polling shows Vice President Kamala Harris holds a slight edge over former President Donald Trump across the battleground states, helped in part by a slight improvement in voters' views on the economy. Speaking to farmers in Pennsylvania today, Trump laid out another part of his economic agenda, saying he would put a 200% tariff on John Deere imports if the company moves production to Mexico as planned.
It's hurting our farmers, it's hurting our manufacturing.
This week, Trump is on a battleground state blitz, which includes stops in North Carolina, Georgia, and Michigan. Harris is also ramping up her campaign schedule with stops planned in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada. While campaigning in North Carolina over the weekend, Trump made no mention of embattled Republican candidate for governor Mark Robinson, who allegedly made racist remarks years ago on a porn site and who Trump once called MLK on steroids. Top members of Robinson's campaign resigned over the weekend, and the Republican Governors Association announced it will no longer fund advertising in the state. Robinson has denied the reports.
We have full confidence that we can go on.
What won't go on? Another debate among the candidates for president.
Let's have another debate. There's more to talk about.
But this weekend, Trump said no.
She's done one debate, I've done two. It's too late to do another. I'd love to in many ways, but it's too late.
And after nearly a decade at the helm of the GOP, Trump was asked if he saw himself running again in 4 years if he lost this time around.
No, I don't.
And tonight, the Trump campaign announced that the former president will return to Butler, Pennsylvania, the site of that first assassination attempt, for a rally there next weekend. Nora?
Caitlin Huey-Burns at the rally tonight. Thank you. It's a first-of-its-kind lawsuit in the nation. California's attorney general sued ExxonMobil today, saying the oil giant misled the public about the limitations of plastics recycling by a lot and for a long time. We get the details from CBS's Ben Tracy.
The planet is drowning in plastic waste.
The campaign of deception that ExxonMobil engaged in is nefarious.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta alleges ExxonMobil deceived the public for decades, touting recycling as the solution when only about 5% of plastic in the U.S. is recycled. He alleges the company lied to further its record-breaking profits at the expense of our planet.
They perpetuated a single-use throwaway lifestyle, saying it's okay, use as much as you want, whenever you want, it can be recycled.
Most plastic ends up in landfills, incinerators, or pollutes rivers and oceans. California's lawsuit seeks to force Exxon to pay damages to help fund cleanup efforts.
The shiny metal shows the new technology that we brought in.
CBS News recently reported on Exxon's claims that it can now recycle any kind of plastic through what it calls advanced recycling.
Is this just your industry trying to make consumers believe that plastic is recyclable so they'll keep buying more plastic?
Advanced recycling is real. It's happening. We're doing it.
We asked Exxon about the Attorney General's investigation before today's lawsuit was filed.
What is your response to the Attorney General of California saying you've basically lied for decades about recycling working?
Obviously, it's an open investigation, and I prefer not to comment on that. We recognize plastic waste as a challenge, and our goal is ultimately to address plastic waste.
Now, Exxon responded to the lawsuit in a statement today, calling California's recycling system ineffective and blaming state officials here. Nora, the company also doubled down and said that its advanced recycling process does work.
Ben Tracy, thank you very much. There's a big reward for information leading to the suspects involved in that deadly mass shooting in Alabama. Plus, what police are saying about the guns involved. That's next. Alabama officials are asking for the public's health in an urgent manhunt for the shooters they say killed 4 people and injured 17 others on a bustling street in Birmingham this weekend. The reward is up to $100,000 for information leading to their arrests after they allegedly tried to pull off a murder for hire but hit many innocent bystanders. About 100 shell casings were found at the scene, and police believe they used conversion devices to make their weapons fire more rapidly. We saw the power of these so-called Glock switches in a demonstration last year. Watch and listen.
From this to this.
You're really kind of spraying bullets.
Absolutely, especially out of a handgun. It's very hard to maintain a weapon that small with that amount of fire.
Now, these Glock switches are small, cheap, and easily produced, and tonight Birmingham's mayor and others are calling for them to be banned. Eye on America is next with a look at the disconnect between the climate protections people want and what some politicians will support. This week in New York City, politicians, business leaders, and scientists from all over the globe are meeting to discuss climate change. This conference unfolds against the backdrop of a clear disconnect. Polls show the public wants Congress to do more about climate change, but many elected officials vote against ideas to address the problem. CBS's David Schechter has tonight's Eye on America.
This may look to you and me
like a corrugated rooftop on a Georgia gas station.
Pull it up about 6 inches.
But to solar installer Clay Copeland, it looks like a profit.
Did you get into solar because of climate change?
I got into solar because it's an excellent business model, right? The environment wins. The economy wins.
Copeland's is one of many green businesses flourishing in politically red South Georgia, where the country's largest electric vehicle factory is under construction. And other investments are being driven by the Inflation Reduction Act. The IRA, passed by the Biden administration, is infusing $370 billion to support the renewable energy transition. Copeland says IRA incentives will support 90% of this future solar project.
When you vote, will you be thinking about climate?
Absolutely.
Clay's work led to a shift in how he thinks about climate change, and he's not alone.
70% of Americans say global warming will hurt future generations, and 62% say Congress should do more about the problem.
I want chocolate chip, a single scoop on a waffle cone.
We got a taste of the district with Republican Congressman Buddy Carter.
Hit the jackpot here.
I'm telling you, it's great.
Across the country, 2/3 of all IRA projects are going to GOP-held congressional districts. Carter's district is gaining 4,500 new green jobs, plus $3.5 billion in new investments like EV battery and component factories. In Congress, Carter, who's running for re-election in November, voted against the IRA. He says he opposed the bill because of a non-climate element that lowers the cost of some prescription drugs, but he says stifles innovation.
Is there a contradiction in benefiting from the IRA, but then also saying, I'm not going to vote for this thing?
Why did the leadership put all that together? Why didn't they let us vote on it separately? It probably would have gotten some Republican votes.
You think so?
I'm sure it would.
Would you have voted for it if it was standalone?
You know, I didn't look at it. That was so egregious to me, the prescription drug portion, that's all it took.
Carter helps lead a group of more than 80 Republicans who acknowledge the climate is changing, but fight against what they call radical climate proposals that would hurt the economy, like the IRA. And when it comes to why the climate is changing, the clear-cut science says it's the emissions from our cars, factories, and power plants. But Carter isn't so sure.
If it's not carbon dioxide that we're releasing that's changing the climate, what is it?
I'm not a scientist in that realm, so I don't know what it could be, but I suspect that it could be just natural phenomena.
In Congressman Carter's district, 53% of people worry about climate change. It's a place where they're exposed to the threats of sea level rise and extreme storms like Hurricane Debbie that folks are still cleaning up from. But Carter votes against environmental issues 96% of the time.
If the IRA was up for a vote today, what should your elected officials do?
They should pass it.
Millions of voters like Clay Copeland are speaking, but are their elected officials listening? For Eye on America, David Schechter, Savannah, Georgia.
Our trip with 60 Minutes to the National Archives is next with a rare up-close look at a major piece of American history.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Farxiga. Visit us at farxiga.com.
Finally tonight, our Rare Access Inside America's Archives for 60 Minutes, which is 43 days until the election. We got an up-close look at the 19th Amendment before it is permanently added to the Archives Rotunda right here in Washington, D.C. We asked Colleen Shogan, the Archivist of the United States, why she decided on this major addition in time for America's 250th birthday in 2026. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote.
Yes.
Why is that important to have that there next to the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights?
Because it was the largest single enfranchisement in American history, the 19th Amendment. So in some ways, concerning voting rights, it was the largest articulation of the rights that are enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. And you and I wouldn't be sitting here and we wouldn't be able to vote if it wasn't for the suffragists in the 19th Amendment. It also is a good lesson in American history that social change does not happen overnight, that sometimes it takes a very long time for us to see monumental change. And it's a good reminder about how that works in the United States.
and how precious our vote is. You can see our full report from Sunday's 60 Minutes and more hidden stories from within the National Archives online at cbsnews.com. And that is tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Good night.